In the world of crime, some criminals are masters of deception. They meticulously plan their actions, cover their tracks, and for a time, they seem to get away with it. They might live for years, even decades, thinking they've outsmarted the system. But there's a silent witness that never forgets: the evidence. Today we're diving into astonishing cases where criminals thought they had committed the perfect crime, only for a tiny, overlooked clue to bring their world crashing down. From a single strand of hair to a digital footprint left in cyberspace, these stories prove that justice has a long memory, and the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of coming to light. Let's start with the case of the BTK killer, Dennis Rader. For 3 decades, he terrorized Wichita, Kansas, sending taunting letters to the police and media, reveling in his notoriety. He gave himself the name BTK, which stood for bind, torture, kill, his gruesome signature. Between 1974 and 1991, he committed a series of horrifying murders, and then he went silent. The case went cold, and for years it seemed BTK had simply vanished, leaving a trail of fear and unanswered questions. Rader lived a double life as a family man, a church leader, and a compliance officer who was hiding in plain sight. But his ego would be his undoing. In 2004, craving the spotlight once more, he re-emerged, sending new letters and packages. He wanted to know if a floppy disk could be traced back to him. The police, in a brilliant move, placed an ad in a local paper, answering no. Trusting them, Rader sent a floppy disk containing a deleted document to a local news station. What he didn't know was that metadated digital information embedded in the file still existed. Forensic experts quickly recovered the metadata, which led them straight to Christ Lutheran Church and to a user named Dennis. A quick search revealed that Dennis Rader was the president of the church council. The final nail in the coffin was a DNA sample from his daughter, which matched evidence from the crime scenes. After 30 years of freedom, the ghost who haunted Wichita was finally unmasked, all thanks to a floppy disk. Now, let's travel back to 1957, to a seemingly unsolvable case in Sycamore, Illinois. A 7-year-old girl named Maria Ridolf was playing outside when a young man approached her and her friend. He offered them a piggyback ride, and Maria went with him. She was never seen alive again. Her disappearance sparked one of the largest manhunts in FBI history at the time. A neighbor described a suspect, a young man in his late teens or early 20s named Johnny. Suspicion quickly fell on a 17-year-old local named John Tessier. He matched the description, but he had a rock-solid alibi. On the night Maria vanished, Tessier claimed he was in Rockford, Illinois, trying to enlist in the Air Force. His parents confirmed his story, and enlistment records seemed to back it up. With no other leads, the case went cold, and John Tessier went on to join the military and live a normal life. For 50 years, the case file gathered dust. But then, in 2008, Tessier's half-sister came forward with a deathbed confession from their mother. She admitted that she had lied to the police all those years ago. John Tessier had indeed been home on the night of the murder. This bombshell reopened the investigation. Authorities dug deeper into his alibi and found inconsistencies. The phone call he supposedly made from Rockford was not documented. Investigators also found a recently unearthed photo of Tessier from 1957. He was the spitting image of the Johnny described by Maria's childhood friend. At 72 years old, John Tessier, now known as Jack McCullough, was arrested. He was convicted of the crime he thought he had buried in the past, becoming one of the oldest individuals in U.S. history to be convicted for a cold case. A mother's lie had protected him for half a century, but her conscience finally brought the truth to the surface. Our next story is about the Grim Sleeper, one of Los Angeles' most prolific and elusive serial killers. For more than 2 decades, beginning in the mid-1980s, he preyed on women in South Central L.A. His chilling nickname came from an apparent 14-year gap in his crimes. From 1988 to 2002, but investigators later realized he never stopped. He just became better at hiding his victims. The police had a DNA profile of the killer, collected from multiple crime scenes, but it didn't match anyone in the national DNA database. The case seemed to hit a dead end. For years, the killer walked free, a ghost in the city. The breakthrough came with a novel and controversial technique: familial DNA searching. Instead of looking for a perfect match, investigators searched the database for a partial match, someone who might be related to the killer. In 2010, they got a hit. The partial DNA belonged to a man who was in prison, and his DNA was similar enough to suggest the killer was his father. That man's father was Lonnie Franklin Jr., a 57-year-old former mechanic and city sanitation worker who lived right in the middle of the area where the murders occurred. But a partial match wasn't enough for a conviction. They needed Franklin's DNA directly, so investigators devised a clever plan. They tailed Franklin to a local pizza place. As he finished his meal, an undercover officer, posing as a busboy, collected his plate, fork, and pizza crust. The DNA from the discarded pizza crust was a perfect match to the DNA from the crime scenes. When police raided his home, they found a chilling collection of photos of his victims and personal items belonging to them. Lonnie Franklin Jr.'s reign of terror was finally over, all because of a piece of pizza and the powerful bond of family DNA. Finally, let's look at the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. He was one of America's most prolific serial killers, responsible for the murders of dozens of women in Washington state during the 1980s, 90s. He was cunning, often returning to crime scenes to move bodies and evade capture. He was even questioned by police in 1984, but passed a polygraph test and was released. For nearly 2 decades, he remained the prime suspect, a taunting shadow lurking just beyond the reach of the law. The investigators had biological evidence from several victims, but the DNA technology of the 1980s wasn't advanced enough to provide a definitive link. Ridgway continued to live his life, even getting married for a 3rd time, all while the families of his victims waited for answers. The turning point came in 2001. With major advancements in DNA technology, scientists were able to re-examine old evidence. They developed a new DNA profile from samples that were previously unusable. They ran this new, more detailed profile through the state database, and this time, they got a match. It was Gary Ridgway. The police had already taken a saliva sample from him back in 1987. They tested that old sample against the new evidence, and it was a perfect match. After 20 years of eluding justice, science had finally caught up to him. To avoid the death penalty, Ridgway confessed to an astounding number of murders, leading investigators to the remains of women they had never found. He thought his careful methods would protect him forever, but he couldn't escape the microscopic truth he left behind. These cases are a powerful reminder that no matter how much time passes, the quest for justice never truly ends. The silent testimony of a floppy disk, a deathbed confession, a pizza crust, and a preserved DNA sample all shout the same message: the truth will find a way. For the criminals who believe they've gotten away with it, these stories serve as a warning. Evidence doesn't forget, and science is always getting smarter. Thanks for watching. If you found these stories as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of true crime. See you next time.